Hello everyone, my name is Polk and I'll be presenting my final project on Leadership 470, or Classic Studies of Leadership course. And my project is on the components of leadership, and this is my attempt to synthesize some of the takeaways from Schreiberg's Practicing Leadership and Principles and Applications, and distilling some of the concepts down into my own belief system. So what I took from is Chapter 5, which deals with the aspects of leadership traits, namely personality and intelligence, and looks at Gardner's multiple intelligence model, or IQ, which is cognitive aptitude, looks at nature versus nurture, what aspects of leaders are born, what aspects are made, and then Daniel Goleman's social and emotional intelligence, which play a large part in the development of my personal beliefs. I also looked at this table 14.1. This is a table that I inadvertently became involved in when I used this for one of the postings. That this was not, it was supposed to be figure 14.1, not table 14.1. But it got me thinking about how I view some of these traits, and I saw that Schreiber broke these traits into positive and negative, and the text relays that as being positive towards leadership or negative. But if you read the actual descriptions, you find that there are advantages to both sides at most. There are some that are absolutely detract from leadership, but most of them are kind of a 50-50. There's a little bit of a takeaway on either side of the trait. And what I did is I distilled that down into these three core elements of leadership. And I look at it as aptitude, which is the ability to make sound decisions based on the information presented in a given situation. This is cognitive ability. I looked at trust. And this is the risk tolerance to allow others to exercise their leadership aptitude under your mentorship. I am a big believer that a fundamental responsibility for leadership is to develop other leaders, that you always have to look at who's going to take your place in the organization if you move on or move out. And then integrity, which is the ability to place the needs of the organization's stakeholders and members above your own. Are you looking out for others before you're looking out for yourself? This is kind of a little bit of a twist on the golden rule, but it's really more about self-sacrifice. And I think that the key to any really truly good leader is that element of willingness to place the needs of others above their own needs. So when you take these three core traits and put them in different combinations, what I've tried to do is kind of see what type of leaders it produces if you have high or low elements among these traits. So what I came up with is this chart that has 8 different styles of leaders. You have low aptitude, low trust, low integrity, which I coined as the destroyer. These are people that absolutely destroy an organization when they gain power. You've got low aptitude, low trust, high integrity, which is the well-meaner. This is the one that it's kind of an accidental tourist. They usually end up being in leadership positions because other people vacated and the stars just aligned. And they mean well, they have all the best intentions, but they usually don't perform all that well. Then you've got low aptitude, high trust, high integrity, and these are kind of, I call it the trusting soul. They're people that have kind of ridden on the backs of others, and not in a necessarily bad way, but they're people that simply trust other people to do it, but they've never really had a lot of core competency. And usually the difference between that and the weasel that I'm going to get to next is that a trusting soul can be a good manager, but they often don't implement a whole lot of vision. They have a very low creativity. It's more about that management philosophy of maintaining. So when you have low aptitude, high trust, low integrity, you have a weasel. And a weasel is somebody that allows people to do the work and then takes the credit away from them, takes the credit for the work that they did not do. And that's incredibly destructive in an organization. You also have high aptitude, high trust, low integrity, which is a con man, and I'll show you an example of that. I've used some specific examples of leaders that I thought portrayed these elements. Then you have high aptitude, low trust, low integrity, which I call the heart of evil, that I'll also get to. There's high aptitude, low trust, high integrity, which I call the great man, which I really believe this is what we think of as the classic leader, but I think that there is an Achilles heel on these type of leaders with that low trust aspect. And then high aptitude, high trust, high integrity, which is truly a great leader in my eyes. So here's the destroyer, Robert Rizzo. For those of you who are not living on the West Coast of the United States, Robert Rizzo was the city manager of Bell, California. He was in the news about a year and a half ago, and he actually destroyed a city through his malicious intent and actions. He is the poster child for low aptitude, low trust, low integrity leadership. I went to a seminar recently through municipal managers of Southern California where the interim city manager who's cleaning up his mess talked about the damage that Rizzo did, and the media did not do it justice on just how much systemic damage he did through his malfeasance and corruption. So here you have high aptitude, high trust, low integrity, which I call the great thief here. This is the con man. Bernie Madoff, investment banker who defrauded investors of billions of dollars, about $60 billion in capital was defrauded out of thousands of investors, some of whom were very powerful figures, some of whom were foreign governments. And these are the guys that pull off these big Ponzi schemes. They're confidence guys, con men. So here's the heart of evil. These are your high aptitude, low trust, low integrity leaders. And by this I mean they're very bright, very, very capable, usually very charismatic, but they do not trust anybody below them in their organization. They tend to create an organization that funnels all power back to their position. And they have very low integrity, meaning that their personal desires outweigh anything that their stakeholders or the members of the organization may have. You know, I think Adolf Hitler is probably the single best example of the 20th century for that, where he was willing to torture, kill, he was willing to implement genocide in the implementation of his personal vision, and he absolutely destroyed Germany in the process. So here we have the great man, and this one may come as a surprise. I think that most of us, especially, I think in this course we've even cited Steve Jobs as being a great leader, and it's not that I'm saying he's not a great leader, but I think that he had a low trust element. If you look at some of his biography and some of the stuff that's coming out on him now, you see that he was not all that trusting he funneled a lot of things back to him as a vetting point. Now, he had very high integrity. He wanted absolutely the best for Apple and the best for his employees and the best for his stakeholders. And I think he really wanted the best for humanity. He really, I think, had a vision that carried over. But here's where that trust issue came into play. He became synonymous with Apple. So when he left the company the first time, when they booted him out in the 90s, Apple's value fell, Apple's integrity fell, and Apple's street credibility fell off. And now that he's deceased, I'm seeing some of the same speculation out there that what will Apple become without Steve Jobs? He didn't really develop that iconic leader to follow him, so the new president doesn't have a lot of the sway that Steve Jobs had. So it'll be interesting to see how it works out for Apple in the long run. So here's my vision of the great leader. For those of you who are familiar with 20th century history, this is Harry Truman, 33rd President of the United States. And his claim to fame was he was the president at the tail end of World War II. And he made some fateful decisions. He was the first and only world leader ever to deploy nuclear weapons. But there were a lot of decisions that he made that never really made the light of day, that a lot of people are unaware that he started the civil rights movement. He made the decision to racially integrate the military at the end of World War II. And that was an incredibly gutsy move. And the thing about him is that he had this high aptitude. He was very intelligent, high trust. He absolutely trusted his subordinates. If you look at the generals that served under him and the cabinet members, they were all very trusted, and had very successful careers after his presidency. And he had absolutely high integrity. He was the one who coined the phrase, "the buck stops here." It was all about self-accountability. And I think that for me, he is absolutely the poster child of what a great leader is. So here's where I had to ask myself, what am I? In a truthful examination, I think that I'm high aptitude, low trust, high integrity. I was a go-to guy in my organization for the last 10, 15 years. My problem is that I developed a solid reputation. I developed a reputation for integrity. But what I did not do is develop talent behind me to take my place as I moved up in the organization. And now I've created my own crisis. When I moved into executive management, when I turned around to find my go-to person, they weren't there. So that led to my crisis. So what I ask you is, as leaders, what are you? Of these three traits, which ones do you feel fit a truthful self-perception of what kind of leader you are? Thank you for your time. Here are the references, and I hope you enjoyed the presentation. Thank you.